Um, okay, let the live streaming begin. Great. Okay, well, welcome to the October meeting of the Community and Organizational Engagement Subcommittee. Thank you for being here. The main thing I would like to do today is take a little time to, oh, there's Doug, to review the action plan. We spent some time in our last meeting just a couple of scant weeks ago, trying to kind of flesh this out. And thanks so much to Doug for the work that he did last week to it was last week. My sense of time is all screwy right now. But thank you so much to him for the work that he did to kind of organize everything and pull everything together. So if you'd like, I can share my screen, or we can just bring the document up independently. I know I shared a link with it in the agenda. Is it helpful if I share my screen on that? Okay, great.
For sure.
Let's do it. And then I guess the other thing that I think that's the main outcome. I'm hoping that this meeting doesn't necessarily need to take a full hour and a half. I know there are there's at least one person who is going to be joining us late. But I think the main thing I'd like to do is just get this ready to go to the rest of the commission and in preparation for our meeting next week. And then perhaps talk a little bit. I was kind of hoping Kathy would join us as well to give us some updates on any outreach she may have done to some folks that we were thinking of trying to bring on to this subcommittee. But first, let's go to the action plan. Okay, screen share. Okay. Who knew we would be live streaming documents? It's riveting, right? Document editing. This is can't miss TV. Doug, do you want to walk us through a little bit of what you did and just kind of highlight some of the things that are different from the last round?
Boy, I can't wait. Everybody's going to be riveted. I didn't change anything with the very first parts, the charter from the executive order,
right?
That kind of stuff. Basically, it was condensing and reducing when possible. So taking out any kind of extraneous language or using EGs, things like that. So a lot of it was just simple grammatical stuff. I think people will find it more dense, but hopefully there'll be less skipping around or even ability to move past stuff without engaging with it or actually having a question about it. So just for example, hold community listening sessions that are open to the public. These were technically accomplished, but we're going to also continue to host them either as needed or in the future. So just kind of extending things that needed to be extended. I don't think there was a whole lot of changes there, but it was things like we had a lot of language about things like being mindful of folks who were historically underrepresented. So just trying to condense and squish that stuff into something that would save a little bit more space. And also things like changing timelines or schedules, like for action step 3, it was something like when we created it, it was like a year ago, and it was like, oh, that's a long way away, and here we are mid-fall, so we have to start doing stuff. And there are still things that are a little like this is one of them. I'm in it now. I created, like, I know with one of these it was involve other people, but then benchmark 5 there was some guy, like a guy's name from Eversource, maybe it was John somebody or other, and I thought to myself, what does that mean? Maybe we should, if there are other statewide corporations, like I couldn't think of any, to my great shame.
I can provide a little clarity on that. I think the hope was that in addition to all town mayors, selectmen, the Council of Governments, we were also talking about chambers of commerce as a potential audience in that same vein. Jonathan Harris from Eversource and Sarah Harris, not related, from the Mohegan Tribe, are the co-chairs of the leadership group, the leadership committee, which is focused on fundraising and broadly just kind of raising awareness among leaders, both businesses and legislators.
Right.
So that is how Jonathan's name came up.
Okay, so that really isn't, I mean, we could leave it in there, but it sounds to me like that.
I don't think we need to, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good news. Thank you for the context.
Of course.
I was probably in a moment during the meeting where I was like, I can't remember. And then the rest of it just kind of fell. It's very similar types of stuff. So continue to field inquiries, right? Like a lot of this stuff is just ongoing. Working with other committees to develop language that we can use for elevator pitches or when we see people and meet people. I was at a meeting yesterday and somebody asked me, hey, should I get involved? I'm like, yeah, absolutely, you should get involved. And then if I had my patter down correctly, it would have been a lot easier for me to be like, this is why.
Great.
Working with others on toolkits, marketing. I think our main goals at the moment are still into this area of encouraging collaboration and inclusion and getting the word out. I don't know if it's come out yet, but a marketing campaign or something is gonna drop. Mid-month was the last that I knew or heard. I did keep in Sarah Harris here. No relation to Jonathan Harris of Eversource, but I think I made a new, I can't remember if that's a new benchmark, but some of the benchmarks were new, some of them were kind of more condensed. Working with other committees as well, realizing what those tasks are going to be like. Oh yeah, we need to liaise with whomever. And then just the resources that we thought we needed from the time of that last meeting. It's money, sponsorships, translations, things of that nature. I think that covers it unless there's specific issues or problems. Really, I'm just a scribe. I don't have any personal ownership of it. It's just work product. So don't be afraid of hurting my feelings. I don't even have any feelings.
Well, we all have feelings, but
No, not me. I have no feelings, no heart, no nothing.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Doug? Well, I just want to thank you again for pulling this together at a busy
Absolutely.
time for everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you so much. My only tiny suggestion is just going up. I think maybe we should take out the name, like take out Sarah Harris's name, for example. I think the sort of corporate or, group names is the right way to go for this document. That's obviously a tiny suggestion.
No, that's a really good one. We don't want to hinge it on one person.
Right.
Yeah, or just like maybe assigns an outsized importance. Like this is, like you said, work product. We're just trying to.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a good.
That is very good.
Good suggestion.
I
think. Yeah. Go ahead, Andy.
The only just thinking about like. This may be just a really dumb idea, but do we want to have a headline or something that's like, this is subject to change? Kind of
You are
thing.
welcome to. I am operating under the understanding that all of these are subject to change.
Sure.
Yes, ever evolving.
Yeah.
Because even what we submitted to the governor back in January has changed tremendously since then. So I'm not worried about not.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was worth saying like, this is a ambitious project and, we are committed to continuing to change our action plan as is necessary to suit the evolving ambitions of the, larger project or something that just so that like, if anyone ever looked at this and they say, why didn't you do this by fall 2023? We can say, that's a feature, not a bug. We,
Yeah, right.
we went out of our way to to be flexible in meeting, the larger goal, something like that.
I don't know.
I
I've
mean,
put a sentence in that's kind of what you said, Andy. So
yes, but anyway, just I don't know. It's
Yeah.
so thoughtful that I think it has the veneer of looking like it could, risk suggesting that we were. Mike says ever evolving. I think it's very good.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Anyway,
I'm not even
it's a small
seeing the
point.
chat.
I
Yeah.
don't need to explain it further.
Yeah. No, we got it. This is like an iterative process, right? We're going back and we're adjusting. Okay. Excellent. Um, Great. Well, I think I was also pleased to see kind of like the resources needed. Do those does those apply to both our main goals here? Doug? Correct. This is kind of like a broader.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's-
Okay.
it
So I'm just
kind of-
gonna take it out from
Yeah.
under. I'm just gonna just like shunk it over like that. So it's not necessarily under either of the goals or action steps, but that's like sort of a separate section.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I didn't know what to do with it, so.
Yeah, no,
it's
that's
a
great.
Yeah, the technical term is shunk, so.
That's right.
Appreciate that, Raymond.
Set a different tab. I can pretend that I'm like working at a manual typewriter and just like funking that whole thing over. Great. So I think that the main things that we wanted to do here were think a little bit. We spent a little time last week establishing a little bit about who was going to do some of these things. And I feel, has anyone else joined us? In the absence of a larger group here, I'm wondering what we think about trying to assign responsibilities for some of these actions, because we really only have four members of the subcommittee here. The subcommittee is larger than that. And it seems unfair to assign things to people in their utter absence from this meeting. Cindy, can I ask a little bit about the expectations around, sort of assignments and like task assignments within the action plan for next week, or if that's something that we can sort of add perhaps at our November meeting after we've had a chance to review the other subcommittee action plans and think about our work in concert?
Yeah, I think that is fine.
Okay.
Mostly because this is, as of right now, one of the more fleshed out action plans. So I think
That's good to know. Yay.
Yeah.
Nicely done, team.
Exactly.
Doug's taking his victory lap.
So I think that there's time, and I agree that we should probably do it when we have a full team here.
Yeah.
Rather than having four take all the work or assign to people who are not here. So
yeah. Okay. Great.
I always enjoy that.
Might there be things that we know that one or more of the group that is here will be doing? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we'll obviously be doing this or that or the other thing. Is it worth going through to see any of those?
Yeah, I think that would be worthwhile. I think there are also some things that, I think we were thinking about being kind of somewhat accomplished, right? This is the IDAA workshop, the initial listening sessions. And I don't know if it's worth just kind of noting that, these took place. I think we can say this is completed by, commission, right?
Yeah.
It's really this sort of third benchmark that, creating those mechanisms for continued feedback and engagement. And I don't know if we want to brainstorm a little bit about what that will look like. These are certainly, I think that, we've been, the league has been doing some of this. I assume that others on this subcommittee have been doing, like in collaboration with Cindy. We've hosted 2 programs this fall, offering an opportunity for feedback to the commission.
Are you, excuse me, Amherst, are you keeping track of those things somewhere?
Not formally, but I
think
think,
that
it would
may
be good
be-
to do that.
Yeah, I think it would be good too, even to make it on the website,
Mhm.
just, the list of things that have happened already. So people
Yeah.
can say, what the hell have you done? You can say, oh, well, funny you should ask. Here's a link.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been keeping track of some of them on the events page, and I haven't done that as much in the last couple of months, but I can repost those CLHO sessions.
Mhm.
It would be
And-
nice to be able to make the claim, like I'm guessing that you've spoken, we collectively, which is mostly you, I've spoken to thousands of people already about the work of the commission. At least hundreds,
Yeah.
So I think that's a nice thing to be able to say, and something that I think you should be proud of.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that includes, just sort of like track the impact of this outreach, essentially, right? People reached, et cetera.
I think that's a great idea, and I think we can do a little more I don't know if it's a spreadsheet or what the best way
Yeah.
to track it is moving forward. I'm almost wondering if there's a way to do a form that commissioners across the board can fill out, because I know Doug sent out an email to everybody who is part of CLA, I believe, recently. So I know I'm doing some things, Amherst is, Doug is, and I'm sure everybody else is as well. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And Cindy, I defer to you, but I like your idea of a form, and I think, to the extent that the burden will fall on you or CTH to make that information available or public to people, I think just to think a little bit about what the best way is for people to get that to you. Like, is it a form? Is it a Google Doc, that we can fill out whenever we do something? How do we track that?
Yeah, I love the idea of a Google form, because then it just populates a spreadsheet that I can use.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe you can help us make this as easy as possible for you. So that I could say something like, I gave this talk, and and then it's just on a list, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do we want to brainstorm what that form will contain right now, Cindy, so that there isn't a lot of burden? I assume that you will be the one to create it, but if there's anything we can do live in the meeting right now to make that easier, as sort of like, a hosting organization or individual, date, time, mode of outreach, approximate number of people reached, and then like additional comments or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I think the main thing we'll probably be tracking is like the numbers of people reached. Presumably there can be some notes that indicate a little bit about the sort of communities being reached. And I don't know if you want that to be kind of like a drop down that's predetermined, based on groups that we've identified as of particular interest, either in this document or elsewhere, or if that's something that we want to have be a little bit more free response. But if you want some kind of like easy categorizations, that's something that perhaps could be constrained by a drop down instead of a.
Yeah, and I
What
lean
is it?
towards check boxes.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
then
Yeah,
we,
that's great. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and but yeah, so I think those are all great categories. The only thing I'll add is URL if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
something like a CLHO presentation where we have a recording
yeah,
or
And even
a
checking
lecture,
the-
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
checking the numbers of views over time, you know.
yeah.
Yeah,
What about, would it be an interesting metric to know how long the conversation was? I'm just imagining being able to say, we talked with 10,000
many
people.
hours?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we inspired, collectively, we've talked for 600 hours about this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in a way, I think two things that are on my mind. One is I'm just aware, as we all are, that like what you measure, then you hold up as the goal. And there are going to be meetings
Yeah.
we take with 1 or 2 people that are more important than meetings we take with 20 or 30. So we don't want to just have the tyranny of the
Yeah.
audience size.
Yeah.
One, and number two, I think that we should remember that I think as we've constructed the commission, the talking about what we ought to do when we talk about 250 is an end in itself. Like the community engagement thing that we're doing is part of the thing that we're doing. Does that make sense? And so I don't want to like reduce it into something that's too metrical and loses sight of the fact that we are trying to simply by the fact of spending our time going around in a million different communities to talk about the legacy of the Declaration of Independence is about you, and we want you to think about it. Like that's part of what the commission is doing. It's an end in itself, and I just want a way to brag about that.
Yeah.
So I came with like hours of conversations, people hours of conversations is an incredible one to think about.
Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm happy to add that. It might be it probably won't be a required field, but
Yeah.
Yeah, of course not. No, I think like people should record what is most interesting or relevant about it. We don't need to fill out every box.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there could just be like a free response field that's just kind of like major things learned too, so that we can also be keeping track of some of the key insights that these sessions and these other forms of outreach are bringing to us, so that we can adjust our work accordingly. That's a part of the responsiveness, I think. So
That's good. Yeah, any kind of, even if there may be a piece of this, Cindy, I'm thinking like this form, to the extent that you want something that auto-populates, we can have a kind of a public and private part of the form also. So maybe we can have a note section that just gets logged somewhere that the commission can see that doesn't automatically populate on the form. Like, we better call this person, like whatever, here's their phone number. Someone needs to follow, or like, we need to discuss this at our next meeting. Would be good, I think, to have all that information in one place, but obviously that doesn't go on the website.
yeah, well, and I don't think this in general will go on the website. I'm thinking of this as something that maybe once a
internal
month
tracking.
I send out to the commission and just here's a friendly reminder to provide this information for tracking purposes. So Liz, what we're talking about is a form
Hi, Liz.
where we can track conversations, emails, presentations, so that when we're reporting at the end of the year, we have a good idea of how many people we've reached.
Okay, so that's the impact. The impact is just is measured by number of people reached.
Yeah, I think so. And perhaps there's more to it. Like Andy was saying, instead of just the number of people, how many hours these people have been engaged. But at least to start with, how many people, because I'm sure that when we're reporting back to the governor, for example, in January, that will be good information to have.
100%. Yeah, no, I just was, when I was skimming through, I figured out what you were talking about. And it's always one of the conversations that I'm always having is about impact, right? And if you don't define the impact in the beginning, then there's not a measurement you can make, right? Like that doesn't work. So, yeah. So what is the most important thing to be measuring here? And maybe it's just communicating with people X about the 250th. I don't know what the X is though. So
well, that's probably going to evolve as well. I mean, at the moment, it's going to be just awareness, but as time goes on, it's going to be, what does it mean to you and your community, and how layered a response groups or individuals or communities can make.
Yeah.
But
right.
at the moment, it kind of just comes back to promoting the expansive and inclusive sense.
Okay.
But you're right. In 2 years, this is not going to hold water anymore.
Which I think is fine. I just keep thinking the point of doing all of this is, I guess if I could articulate it right this second, is to have as many communities as 169 municipalities in Connecticut and all the folks who live in them engaged in some aspect of the commemoration of the 250th. There's like the vision, right? So, right. So
Involvement.
Goal expansive. Yeah.
So is that a kind of an adjustment of the goal, essentially, to kind of add a little bit more specificity, then, Liz?
Yeah, it's and I go back to sort of with the charge of this committee right this moment. It's exactly what you said, Douglas, like the charge of the committee right this moment versus what this committee will be doing later. And so the first charge is talking about the two, I don't know. I mean, like, and I'm not sure who's going to do the work, defining the plan too, right? I don't know that we're going to be doing all the work here.
Right.
So our charge is really creating a plan to do this. It is not for the committee to do this, right, Cindy? Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know, but ultimately, we want to have all communities, all municipalities in Connecticut activated for the 250th. And the metric would be things are happening, by a plurality of people representing diverse backgrounds in all 169 communities. So that measurement would be different. So the ultimate, this is like, these are the mini steps to get to the major impact. It's just sort of like, keep your eye on the prize.
Now, does that relate? I mean, is it something completely different from goal 2, which is on page 3? Create a community-based structure that will be used for commission work? Is it encouraging people to use that structure? Is it?
I think these both overlap. I think they're two goals with a lot of overlap. And I'm not sure how much we want to spend time trying to narrowly define what each is.
I've got all day.
Lucky you.
Librarians, we just read books.
I think a lot of these action steps could fit under either goal. And so it's really thinking about how I like the idea of thinking of how to track these and how to assign metrics to them.
So do we simply just want to include that as a part of the goal? Or is that, a separate action step? I guess, I'm sensitive to the desire that I'm hearing to offer a bit more specificity about what success looks like and how we're going to measure it. Right. Liz, where would you suggest that that belongs?
I started thinking about that. I think
Yeah.
you know, I think actually the measurement is with each action step.
Mhm.
So it's not really under goal one,
Mhm.
you know, it's under each action step.
Mhm.
So like, you know, and I mean, I think you know, there is potentially a goal for the action step, right? I don't know, but you know, you can make these as so complicated. And
You know,
it wasn't my goal to come in a half an hour late and then use the issue, which is,
Yeah.
it was just like coming in and hearing it and just thinking about like that word impact and just
Yeah.
making sure that the impact is for each action step is
Mhm.
the right impact, but it all relates to the giant
Yes.
point
Yeah.
of this, right?
I-
that
I
was
have
my
an idea, Liz, you've inspired, your points are so well taken, and I just inspired by that. I wonder if goal number one is clear, promote an expansive and inclusive sense. This is like our educating people about what Connecticut 250 is. And goal two is encourage people to do it. So it's not create a community-based structure, because that we're not trying to create a community-based structure. What we're trying to do is encourage community activities in line with the, encourage community activities, Connecticut 250 activities, encourage community-based Connecticut 250 activities. Action step one is creating the network, which basically means developing the communication structure so that we are talking to everyone, they're talking to us, and everyone's talking to each other. And action step two is encourage people to actually do the thing. And
yeah.
so the measure for step one is, basically how many people we talk to, how many names are on the email list, that kind of stuff. And the metrics for action step two is what did they do? And that makes clear that we're not working on action step two yet, because we're not doing events yet. But it sort of starts to
Goal
disaggregate.
two. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, so I almost said like 5 times, can you scroll down to goal 2? I think that is literally where I got hung up with the impact thing.
Okay.
That wasn't quite right.
And I think
So are we liking this goal as a better,
I like
know,
that. I
if-
like action step one. I think action step two should be just a little clearer. Encourage wide collaboration, inclusion across Connecticut, like encourage collaborative and inclusive Connecticut 250 events across Connecticut.
Yeah. I feel like this is stronger. Doug, you've been really deep into this.
yeah.
No, that makes perfect
Does it
sense.
feel right?
Maybe
Yes,
it's
it feels
encourage and
absolutely right.
support
Yeah.
collaborative, inclusive America 250 events across the state. And that second sentence ends up in a benchmark.
Mhm. 100%. And it gets to the how many. A lot of these benchmarks are going to be nicely how many. I mean, how many is dumb a benchmark as that is?
Mhm.
It's a very easy one. And when you're looking at broad participation, it actually is, it's a significant one. Who community they represent and geography they represent, like those are important.
Is this a part of an existing benchmark? I guess the text that I have highlighted and removed from the action step, is that its own benchmark? Or is that, and I guess I think, like the order of the benchmarks, thinking about those as well, like where do we feel this belongs?
I mean, we know who they are, right? We're not,
Mhm.
it's almost superfluous in a way.
Mm,
So I agree that it's almost superfluous, but this is the only place where we really list who these people are that we're reaching out to, and I don't want to lose sight of that. And I don't know if that means it's like descriptive text instead of an actual benchmark, because it's hard to measure.
Under just a little bit up under that working list hyperlink,
yeah.
That's kind of who we're talking about, kind of in
Yeah.
the list. I mean, it could just kind of go at the top of that. Like,
Yeah.
this is what we have identified so far among the groups of elected officials, community leaders, blah, blah,
Mm.
blah.
Okay. Yeah. Folks like that. You can just drop it in here.
I would also put it, maybe even at the risk of being totally redundant, goal 1, action step 3, which right now is about elected
Yeah.
officials. We could add it there too.
Mhm.
I mean, with legislators, municipal leaders, funding organizations, museums, community partner, like that whole list to share the work of the commission, because that we're doing that. So we might as well say that, acknowledge we're doing it.
So I'm sorry, I guess I'm not clear on what the adjustment to action step 3 is
So
that you're
adding,
proposing.
I'm proposing this list that's community leaders, library, schools, community centers, local museums, historic sites, and other interested groups,
Okay.
and adding that along with elected officials. Because our networking now in step 1 is not just with elected
Mhm.
officials, it's with all of these cultural organizations.
Yeah. Okay. That action step was actually mostly about, it seems to me, the sort, at least all the benchmarks underneath it are much more
It's
specifically
true, we
tied
could put
to.
it as a separate action step. My point is we've
Yeah.
de facto decided that that is an important action step because we're doing that work. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to acknowledge that we actually are doing that.
Yeah. Okay. So we want to add that group in this list in action step 3, and then perhaps flesh out some additional benchmarks that are more related to the outreach that we're already doing with those other groups. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's one, and even, yes, or a simpler way would be to remove some of the specificity from the benchmarks.
Uh-huh.
So it's
Yeah.
work with partner organizations to host. So benchmark 1 could be work with partner organizations to host info sessions. Benchmark 2 could be develop a presentation for community groups. You know, we could not limit it to
Yeah.
political
Yeah.
venues. Again, just like I'm thinking about the presentations, Amherst, that you and Cindy have been doing should be acknowledged. They're so the primary work of this commission so far, the committee so far. I want to see them in an action step.
Okay.
So that the form that we made, all the stuff you've reported, like what metric do those attach to? I'm trying to make a.
I see it. I feel like. Great. So we basically want to remove some of the specificity around legislators here, or do we want to keep that in?
It's good to have them. My feeling is that it's good to have them named, all the different kinds of groups.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, if you all feel that it would be better, perhaps we can include something at the bottom of the action plan that says some of the groups considered for outreach have been, and just list it all. Because in theory, a lot of all of this can go to most, if not all of them.
Yeah, I think that that's a good idea, because with this list, it's really sort of becomes a checkbox, right? Who's doing what, and in that form potentially, like, right here, here's a choice. Here's a whole big list, and is there an other, like, because it just leaves room for continuing to grow that list. But the activities are going to be the same. The presentations can be the same. I don't see necessarily a reason. I mean, presentations are made with a particular point, but if the point is sort of an overview of what communities can do to participate in the 250th, then that's that's a presentation. If there's an overview to legislators about why funding for the 250 is important, that's a different presentation, but
Mhm.
they have different purposes, so they would look the same. But if they are the same purpose, then and legislators may want to know, the municipal leaders will, they will want to know what kinds of activities are we talking about? Like, I don't know,
I think another way to deal with this is we have this kind of working list that we sort of developed. Another thing to do was basically, include those more specific things, the municipally sort of organized things, councils of governments and council of small towns, et cetera. A lot of the work that I think Denise has been thinking about in particular, and sort of include them on this list, basically. That would be another way to, since we're already linking out to this, if that's one thing that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't want to be missing things. Okay, great. Sorry, trying to keep track of the chat while I'm also sharing my screen, always a challenge. Okay, just to go back to this. So it sounds like we want to remove some of the specific language here. Yes.
Yeah, as long as
And
it's captured elsewhere.
develop a presentation for community groups.
And maybe community, not the word. Maybe it is. I can't think of a word. Sorry, I've been going all morning. My mind just went blank.
I mean, we can just say community groups of different stripes, to say that it's not,
Or is it develop
Interested,
a
how about interested
presentation?
groups?
yeah, interesting.
Don't want to
Okay.
give any presentations to groups that aren't interested, but we would
Yeah.
love to give a presentation to any group that is
That's
interested.
what I'm thinking. I'm like, that wasn't the word. A good one. Because people don't think of government as community.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's really,
Okay, great. Okay, so does that look good, folks, then? We like this, it's streamlined?
Benchmark 3 should be offer the presentation as
Yeah.
needed.
I'm just gonna do a light.
That's fine.
do we need to say the presentation could be virtual or in person? Or do we need to say that?
No, that's why I made it offer the presentation.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
got it.
great. Good to have so many awake brains.
Nothing like 10 cooks in the kitchen.
My kid was up multiple times last night, so I wouldn't say that my brain is like as awake as I would like it to be.
And we're all people who have to write quite a bit for our job, so.
Okay. I think that action step 4 is looking pretty good to me. And
Actually, the two benchmarks in action step 4 are the
Yeah.
same. One
Yeah.
should be develop.
Yeah.
So this, it's just this.
Yeah.
My recommendation is
Yeah,
that.
great.
Then we can say, to Liz's point before, how many emails we responded to.
Yeah.
Nice measure.
Great. Excellent. Okay. This is actually one that I think we fleshed out pretty well in our last meeting. I don't know if there's any adjustments we need to make to this. We even have some people assigned to those tasks, so that's great. Sorry, I'm watching Andy edit. This is the like riveting. What's he gonna say?
Monty Python had a sketch about watching novelists writing.
Mm.
Pretty funny. It was like sports commentator.
Yeah.
Type stuff.
Come on, Mike, where's the color commentary?
I did that in college for hockey. I'm done. No more. It was very bad. The guy that I did it with is now professional, and I just try to make him laugh and like not do it anymore. So like I'm done. I gave my all.
Pardon me, I'm gonna cough. Great, okay.
Shared language instead of common? Is that where you're sitting there, Andy?
Correct, and I decided just to take out the adjective.
That's fine.
Great. Okay, goal 2, encourage community-based America 250 CT activities. Thoughts on this action step?
I'll just note that I changed it a little bit already
Okay,
from what you may have seen 10 minutes
that's
ago.
fine. I trust you.
Change stuff all the time when you guys aren't looking.
It's Connecticut 251. Doug bought us an extra year.
Did you do that, Doug?
Sure. No problem.
Okay, if we're feeling good about action step 1, yes, we move on to action step 2. Are we feeling like there are some, kind of like metrics in here, sort of embedded in these action steps and benchmarks? We've already got kind of like a working list.
In action step 1, benchmark 1,
Mhm.
the second sentence that I've highlighted seems to be a schedule.
Oh, yeah.
We should
Yeah.
delete it. It's
Yeah,
on- we already said
that's
it's on.
fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ultimately, Cindy, I don't know what the plan is, but when we talking about sort of how to actually look at what the metrics are on this, this has to do with it's sort of a management task, right? Because if someone somewhere is actually looking at how, linking the contacts that people are making at the beginning to what is actually happening at the end, the results. I mean, I think that ends up being, that track ends up the tracking ends up being sort of the plan, right? Because people who sort of like, at a certain point, if there's 10 towns and 5 of them have events scheduled and the other has not been heard from for months, right? Then there's follow-up there potentially. So I'm trying to think of how I would do this if this was in my office. That's probably what I would be doing, like looking at looking at municipalities and within municipalities, looking at organizations, track, those interactions. And I'm not sure, it's never easy because that all takes time, but there's no real way to go back and correct, to actually help to achieve the goal of 169 towns unless we're tracking what's happening in that. And I don't know if we care about it, right? Like that goes back to sort of this like, well, if we're going to let this be like, people can do whatever they can do. Do we care? What do we care about? And is the thing we care about is that all the towns do something? Or we don't even care about that,
Well, I can say for a fact that Denise cares, and I believe that the governor's office cares, based on my understanding. So I think in thinking about the metrics, I think a lot about what are they going to want to hear. And I think tracking towns is important. Ideally, at this time next year, we'll be up to 2 or 3 staff members working on 250th stuff, which will make it a lot easier to be able to really track the towns and be able to share.
I think it's a horse sort of that the horse and cart situation in terms of the request for funding. A very strong argument to make is that the whoever has the staff can be responsive to this sort of, long view of ensuring that there's a follow-up with people as needed. But that can't be done without money, because that's just not a thing that can happen. It's too labor intensive.
Yeah. The good news is, I want to say we're at about 20 to 25 local contacts already. We're getting feedback from mayors and town selectmen. And I'll have an actual number before we all meet on Wednesday. But slowly we're gaining traction, and I think that will be a great number to point at.
Yeah.
We have these number of towns that are interested, and we need more support to be able to really work effectively with them.
That agreeing with all of that 100%. We also might just remember as a backstop that another potentially relevant metric is not a number of towns divided by 169, but maybe something like there was an event within 5 miles of every resident of Connecticut or something. Like, it may not be that every town, I mean, every town is a nice way of saying every person feels welcome. And I realize that there's funding reasons to every town. Like, I don't mean to, I understand all of that, but we may also just want to have in the back of our minds that there are other ways that we can describe trying to touch every person.
Yeah.
It's not going to be every town, right? Because it's going to be, I mean, we are.
Exactly. That's my point. Given that it's not going to be every town, let's remember how we could talk about ways of this was available to every person. Everybody was invited. Everybody heard about it. Everybody could get to an event. Like, we want to have different ways of saying, given that we're not going to get 169.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's sort of an internal tracking mechanism, right? To be paying attention to, right? So accessibility for Connecticut residents. How easy is it for every person in Connecticut to access one or more of these events, right? Like, but that's all data collected by who's doing it and location of event and cost of event, like, depend a database, right?
Okay, so I've just added essentially like a little bit about that under this benchmark, unless we feel it belongs somewhere else.
And just going back to benchmark 2 really quickly, I wouldn't say upon launch, because technically we have launched near recognition. So I think we can just say, sure.
Take everything out after campaign.
Yeah. And then we can figure out what that looks like without having to specify too much yet.
Great. That's looking good to me. Okay. Here, moving on to action step 2, which gets us very close to the end, folks. This is exciting. The suspense is building. Encourage and support collaborative and inclusive America 258 Connecticut events across the state. Ongoing. We've already adjusted this one a little bit, I believe. And a lot of this came out in some of our
I think we should delete what I highlighted. I think that
okay.
Realized elsewhere. You agree?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
And under 2, I think it's good to list. I think we should add disability community.
Okay.
Because that's a community that we often forget when we're talking about. And there's a metric, how many events were all access?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be all of them.
Yeah.
I realize we're being recorded, but as a historian, I just want to say off the record that it's funny to think of church leaders as being historically underrepresented groups.
Yeah.
In a state founded as a theocracy.
Yeah.
Well, it is often the best way to get to to be able to link
Absolutely, it belongs there.
I mean,
have
how
every-
about
You see the humor in it.
every endorsement of it? It was
especially
just the idea that it was
those?
historically underrepresented in a.
How about if I
historic
add
bureaucracy.
especially those from? Does that make you feel a little bit better?
Oh, no, I was just being annoying, but I actually
Okay.
want to say, hold on, let me think about it. Yeah, especially it's not, something like that. But that, I mean, I don't mean this politically, but like, are what we saying we want to do is have affirmative action essentially to reach out to people who may not feel this is for them, or is what we're saying that we want to be sure that that we don't miss anybody and that there's a kind of equality of our message. Those are both good ideas, but we
Yeah.
should know which one we want to do. Do we want to
Yeah,
make
it's a great
special
question.
efforts, or make sure special efforts to include people, or be especially sure we don't leave anybody out? Are kind of two different questions.
I think it's really the first that you said. It's really making concerted efforts to include people who,
That's great. So then this is the correct formulation then.
yeah, though I would not use affirmative action.
We can't. It's unconstitutional.
But we didn't ratify the Constitution until like, I don't know, really late.
Yeah, we were one of the last.
Yeah. So
Don't you love the we?
sure,
As if we did it. I personally have not yet ratified the
I haven't either. I don't know about the rest of you.
No one has. I haven't gotten that doodle poll yet.
Oh God, is that how it's gonna come?
Absolutely.
Please no.
Should be a Twitter poll.
AMRS ratified.
It's gonna be on the next agenda, Doug.
I was listening to a whole podcast on whether it's time for another constitutional convention. But going back to benchmark 3, conduct site visits. I'm wondering, does this feel like it fits here?
Mm.
And is that what we mean? Like,
Yeah.
so now we're talking about going out to events, and I get that. I mean, I get that as a desire, especially if there are events that have been fun, like, but I'm kind of going on the what for.
Yeah.
Maybe it goes back in action step 1, too broad outreach.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's the pre, and it's great to get people out to events. But I'm
Okay.
I'm just not sure if it's the right benchmark.
Liz, that's right. Should there be a benchmark that is about the actual events, though, that's like participate in the events, which is different from a site visit?
Yeah.
Well, so
Or do we not want to say that commissioners should be participating in these events?
I mean, again, I would say who, right? Who and who care, right? Honestly, if we hope, right, there's only however many of us, if we hope that there's going to be millions and billions of events, like, come on, like, this is
I
not.
totally agree. I think that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense then. What about a different kind of thing? Do we want to collect, we, in this case, either meaning our committee or the commission generally, collect information after every event? Is there any kind of reporting about what happened?
Mm.
So I will say that in our budget that we're presenting to the state and to private funders, we have included money for evaluation. So ideally, we would work with an evaluation professional to develop some kind of survey that we can share with sites that are conducting events, and then collect that information and do something with it.
I think
think-
that's well and good. But what about, that's good. I'm thinking of something more like documentation.
Mm.
This is itself a historic project. And maybe we want to, let me say differently. I think somebody ought to be charged with creating a record of what we've done. Not just the work product, but the actual events.
Mhm.
I think that's an important historical document and an
Yeah.
archive that somebody ought to create. I don't know that it needs to be our committee, but I do think that we should, but maybe it should be our committee, and we need to work with whether it's the state archive. I mean, I don't, or somebody who's going to be charged with archiving the stuff, and we should have a collection mechanism for it.
So I think that my guess is that, because I know the state library has actually a big archive of, fairly large archive of the bicentennial and prior. So I feel like they're probably planning all that stuff already. But it's sort of like, I just wonder if we're going to be using CT Visit, as I presume we are, to incur for as a bicentennial, as a place to list your bicentennial event. I think maybe it could be the archive, but I don't know how, you know what I mean? I feel like there has to be a way of capturing that information somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is, because I don't know how it's all set up, but
I think just kind of hearing about the archiving and things like that, maybe connecting to, the state archives, but also the State Historic Record Advisory Board,
Yeah,
I
was
think
just
might
gonna
be,
say, sure.
because how do we get them involved? Because that's kind of
yeah.
that's the higher level of archivists and, archival scholars in the state as kind of a central place. So maybe, this might be a good place to bring them in, and then I get filtered kind of to where it needs to go. Lizette Pelletier runs that. So
Right.
he's the same.
Yeah, and so
So what I would like to say is that this all sounds great, but I wonder if this is a separate goal and one that we're talking about in 6 to 9 months when we have events to
Mhm.
consider evaluating and collecting information about. Because it doesn't feel to me like it's part of this goal to,
We could have an amorphous action. I mean, to the extent that it's this committee's purview, we could have an amorphous action step 3 that is like document and evaluate events. The schedule is starting in 2026, and it's work with the people and organizations we just named to develop a mechanism for archiving important records of the event and work with professional evaluator, to evaluate the events.
I like that idea.
And know that that's going to be sort of vague for now, but we don't have to, but just to acknowledge that it's there.
Yeah.
In other words,
Okay.
it's just an after. We have, so
Yes.
now, I mean, what's very nice, action step 1 is before, action step 2 is during, and action step
Yeah.
3 is after.
So this is basically document and evaluate America 250 CT events and ensure that historical record of this work is maintained at the proper repository. Right? Something like that.
it's fine.
And I
Yeah,
think
but I would
maybe
just
we don't
say,
include book benchmarks for now.
Just keep it at that. Yeah. Okay.
well, I was going to
Yeah.
do it this way.
Yeah, sure.
I know someone just said, don't do this, but the way to do it would be.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I
That
think
would go
that
under resources too.
there's a little, the little thing that I'm noting here is, so there's the evaluation of like what happened, like how many programs happened, but there's also the evaluation of, did this communications and organizational engagement plan work?
Mhm.
What were the holes in it? And so those are two slightly different things. And since we're the community and organizational engagement, like it does seem like that might be a good learning, like just know what do we wish what could we have done at the beginning that we didn't do?
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Good. There was the question of the site visits. Did we want, I just want to go back to that quickly because it has not yet been removed. Did we want to move it up to action step 1 as a
I think
benchmark?
it's already there, and I mean, in terms of going out to giving presentations, unless
Yeah.
there's a, like, I mean, we haven't figured out what the presentation, you know, I'll always is that there's going to be multiple presentations, there's going to be multiple needs, right? I feel like maybe developing community engagement programs that reflect the needs of communities as they engage in 250th planning is a step, but we're not, it's a little tricky to anticipate what the needs are going to be. I mean, we can guess some of them, but little fly by the seat of your pantsy.
Okay.
So we could just remove it.
Is that really is that what we just want to do, is get rid of the site visits?
There, I think it gets removed because I just don't think it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
people are going to do it anyway. The people who are funding are going to do this anyway. Funders are going to send out people to check out programs.
Okay. Okay.
So I think benchmark 4, that's what I was thinking about, just
Yeah.
in terms of conversations that I've had.
Yeah.
In the sort of robust thing that's going to happen is that I think, just based on conversations that I've had, is that the state tourism and marketing is going to take a huge leadership role in creating all kinds of the marketing materials for this. And it's already, so the new logo and marketing campaign for the state is coming out on the 17th. It's going to be public. And I don't know when or where, how, but you know, and they're already creating a bicentennial, or sorry, that one for this. You know, it's gonna be there, like, and I think they're planning to buy crap tons of market, like they're gonna really, I think, coordinate a lot of the media stuff. So I think that
Can exit.
Commission can yield the leadership for that to their expertise. They're running with it.
Yeah.
It's not the bad old days anymore. Like literally a few months ago, we're in a little bit of a different place.
Okay. So do we want to remove this benchmark entirely, or it looks like Andy might also be suggesting an alternative wording?
I'm totally fine with deleting it if that's more appropriate. Just delete it, Liz.
I think probably we could either delete it, or we could make a nod to ensure that there is regular and clear communication between the 250th and the state marketing, or marketing.
That's nice.
But I would agree and lean towards leaving it out, only because I think the latter is really going to be the marketing and tourism subcommittees.
Okay, I thought maybe there was another subcommittee. I forget.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Great.
this subcommittee has plenty of work without that. So
Yeah. Good. That sounds good to me. Happy to take it out. Okay.
The one thing we haven't put in here, go back to the top maybe,
Yeah.
is, have we talked about talking to communities to see what the most effective way that we can talk to them is, which I know is like right? Is there a pre-step that we need? Maybe there isn't, because maybe that's a part of what we're saying here. I mean, the holding community listening sessions open to the public is great, but we all know that there's only certain people go to those.
Yeah.
So I will tell you right now, I have a couple of populations that I'm doing great with, but still Hispanic Latino communities, I still struggle with them getting the right people, the right times, the right mode, and it's not language. Language is the easiest thing we can fix. So it's not fixed by, not that we shouldn't be offering materials in multiple languages. Like I highly applaud that. Like all the communications kits, everything should all be in as many languages as humanly possible that show up in Connecticut. But that's for the marketing people. So I think there's this like, I don't know
So
if we need to go in there or not, but I'm just,
Mhm.
I think we get at it a little bit with benchmark 3, though that could be its own separate action step in a lot of ways, because
Mhm.
it's less about a listening session and more about these both formal and informal sessions where we kind of really engage a little more organically with some of these communities. And I think part of that work is at some point as a commission, we need to decide who those people are and
Yeah.
find concerted ways to reach out to them. And I'm not sure. I think a lot of the work will fall to CT Humanities, but I think we could use guidance and support in identifying who the right people are.
maybe it's just somewhere, just a note that is, it goes somewhere in there, but it's just a note that we understand that we don't know how to reach everybody.
Mhm.
You know, that is, even though we're saying we want to reach all these people,
Yeah.
that we recognize that our traditional means of outreach may not reach all audiences. And we need to just be intentional about
Mhm.
how to do it. I'm just trying to think of like, really, if we want to read this with a lens,
Yeah.
like how do we, is there a need to be humble in any of these acknowledging things? Because we know that if we, depending on who you hand this to execute, it's going to look different.
Mhm. I mean, maybe we can just add another sentence at the top that kind of,
And maybe
because I
that's
think
right.
this is an overriding
Yeah,
concern
maybe that's right, Amris.
of this subcommittee. I think this is a conversation we've returned to many times, right? You know, concerns about the traditional modes of outreach, missing important people that we really want to be involved and to feel that sense of belonging as a part of the work that the commission is doing. So, you know,
I like, Amherst, I want to interrupt just so you don't lose that language, because I like that better than the confessional
Mm.
failure of we recognize we're going to fail. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
this is an ambitious project
Yeah.
involving opportunities and challenges. We are especially committed to continuing to learn how, you know, to making central to the work of the commission or the committee, finding ways to reach, you know, everybody in Connecticut, especially those who are, you know, too often, you know, what something like that. But I want to say it is like what we're going to try to do
Yeah.
instead of what we're likely to fail to do.
Underrepresented by
Yeah.
traditional means of communication, something like that. Traditional community outreach, traditional methods of community outreach. I don't know.
What about this? Who might, especially those who might otherwise be left out,
Mhm.
excluded, who might, you know, be excluded or from civic
You could just leave
events.
it excluded.
Yeah, I think just ended it
Yeah.
excluded.
Okay.
right. Good.
How about? Boom.
Yes.
Mm.
Amherst, I think you're really good at this, by the way.
Yeah, this is a ding dang good at it with, you know, a lot of cooks. You know,
Thank you. I
well-spoken
feel like I'm just trying to like, you know, do what Doug did and like, you know, make
think
sure I'm
I
incorporating
think
everything.
You
So
were even good at it when you were sick. So
oh my God, the last meeting, I was so deathly. I still have this like hacking cough me up half the night. I was like, I'm just gonna get up and do some work because I can't sleep. Fun stuff. Okay, that's good. I feel like we made it to the end of the document. Are we feeling pretty good about this? Because I'm conscious of the time.
I think that feels good for, I mean, I would hope that whoever takes this, I mean, we're all taking, but it can be made to be anything.
Yeah.
It's like our best draft at this point, but everything is a draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's
Nobody's
always a draft.
nobody's engraving this, you know.
Wait, we're not?
I
Especially
will
for
do one.
Doug.
I'll do one last read through before I send it out to the full commission, just to
Yeah.
make any like grammatical and like
Thank you. Cindy.
formatting edits. But I won't be making any big changes at all.
Okay. But Cindy, if you think there's like, if you're reading this and you're like, oh my God, how did we never talk about this? Just shoot us an email,
Yeah.
and if nobody is good about responding, just add the big thing. I would just go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, because if it's a big enough thing that you're like stunned, then it should go in there, and don't wait for all of us.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll be responsive, but
That's right, but do try to let us know, because I want, when I get it tattooed, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure it accurately reflects what's in the document.
Perfect.
Are you getting it on your back or your chest? I was thinking back.
I was gonna do back the way that people standing behind me could read, but chest in reverse so I could see it in the mirror,
In the mirror. That's smart.
so I can read it myself.
we should make a note for temporary tattoos that, like, say, we the people, or when in the course, or whatever. That temporary.
Ooh, win in the
We get
course.
temporary tattoo. Let's do temporary tattoos that are QR codes, so people just
No.
do like zap it with their phone and it comes up to the US Constitution or whatever document.
I think that is such a good idea that I'm like willing to pay to execute
All right,
that.
we'll do that. Put it in there somewhere.
I like want to have temporary tattoos with,
Temporary tattoos.
man.
I'll add it to the list of potential swag. A lot of people have also asked for lapel pins.
I want a bicep tattoo that says the powers of the earth, which is a nice phrase from the preamble.
Ooh,
Oh
Is that
yeah, we should
the laws of nature and of nature's God.
You're just so much smarter than me, but clearly, yeah. That's why I didn't end up majoring in history. So yay. Good choice, Shapiro. I think that's good, but definitely temporary tattoos are so much better than lapel pins. Oh,
Yeah.
We can do both.
I like buttons
I
though,
know,
like
both is fine. I get it.
like funky buttons. I would go on the funky button side. That would be
We're
my
running
jam.
out of time, but I do sort of question, I mean, I think we have different levels of commitment, because I was not talking about temporary tattoos.
I know you weren't. I'm
just-
talking about swag, and I
All
do
right,
understand. I was 100% understanding.
Is there any feedback in the live stream about what Andy should get as a tattoo as a result of his time on this
I
commission?
think I'm the only one
wanna
watching
hear
the
from
live
you.
stream
Yeah,
because
no,
I have to.
Shocker there.
All right. I mean, you gotta go life, liberty, and
they're-
the pursuit of happiness. is
They're
really-
missing out.
But at our signature event in July of 2026, we could have a tattoo artist there with like selections or recommend.
And Eric Sloan has worked with a tattoo artist to create tattoos for Eric Sloan Museum, and
Yeah.
and you can have people vote on them. There's a lot of good ideas. There's a lot of tattoo artists. Now there's a way to get a lot of people involved in the 250th.
Yeah.
Seriously, I am not kidding about that.
The tattoo
don't hate the idea.
community.
A tattoo competition or a tattoo exhibit, like have tattoo artists, and then, have them judged and choose the official tattoo of the Connecticut semi-quin. People would love it. I'm just going to tell you that.
This is a different, you'll see the illusion here, but there should be some beers.
Yeah. That's already been discussed.
That's already happening? Okay.
Okay,
I've already
good.
heard about that. Yeah.
All right.
100%. My computer I told it to restart in 4 hours and to remind me that. Remind me
Before
40 minutes later.
I hate to like quash any of the incredible brainstorming that's happening right now. Where's our marketing committee when we need them? I did want to follow up on something that Liz was speaking about engaging the Hispanic and Latino community, because this was one area. This just takes me to item 2 on our agenda, which I realize we're not going to have a lot of time to talk about. But this was another area where I feel like there is not representation from that community on this subcommittee. And I am wondering, I guess I would just we only have a few minutes left. So I just kind of and I haven't heard back from Kathy Labadia about any of the outreach that she has done with tribal communities. But that was another important community here in the state that I feel like, maybe we might like to think a little bit more about.
I think, Emerson, it's so important, and my like quick response would be, which is implied by yours, is that as we are now, like, it seems like every week and every month we're doing more outreach and connection, and we probably should all have on our agenda that this committee, as we've discussed before, should get slightly larger in targeted ways.
Yeah.
We should be trying to identify who might be, you had the idea, or someone had the idea last time, that maybe we need to have a special meeting so that people only have to come maybe one time, and we're not asking for a bigger commitment. So I think we should either be on the lookout or maybe to do that first and invite certain people to speak to us and tell us whatever they think we ought to hear once, and then invite further participation if somebody's interested.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that could be something we're all thinking about as we go off into the world in the coming weeks. Who do you
I think
invite?
that I think that's a great idea, Andy. And I think the other thing that I might include there, just since we're looking at the action plan again, and we're been asked to have resources, to identify resources, do we want to pay people for their time since they are not like officially on the commission? Is that something that we should consider? It's certainly something that makes that kind of participation more accessible to a number of people. Speaking as all folks who are not technically
That's
being
always a goal. I think that this should always be a goal.
Yeah.
That's not even a conversation.
great.
I love
Okay.
that idea. I will say that it does raise questions about parity between
Yeah.
subcommittees, because I will say that the
Mm.
education subcommittee has like 30 members,
Yeah.
and then
A different
But-
way, Cindy, respecting both of these ideas, we have on the action plan right now that our committee may take the lead on developing some modular or portable toolkits or actual programs. And certainly we would want expert help with those. And that might be an occasion in which we could hire consultants and pay people for their time if they were advising us on those or on some other specific. So in other words, not paying for someone to work on the committee, but to the extent that we have deliverables, we can hire people to help us with those. And that would be a way of remunerating their participation.
yes, and I wholeheartedly agree. And now that I talk about it, I think there is something in the bylaws that we cannot compensate for any commission or subcommittee work.
Okay.
But like work product that is being developed does not fall under that. I think it's.
Yeah, we're going to pay the people to print the brochures. We can pay the people to
Yeah.
help with the curriculum. I mean, we're going to pay a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that idea.
Can you, instead of saying people, say professionals? Because that'll make it more clear to people who are outside us, who haven't been in this conversation.
2 thumbs up for that. Perfect.
Okay.
I have to go, you guys.
Yeah. I'm going to have
Yeah,
to
I do
go as
too.
well.
What are you guys talking about? Where's your priorities? We were just talking about permanent tattoos and now suddenly you have to leave.
I have my tattoo appointment.
I gotta tell you, my day was a sucky day in terms of meetings. You guys are fun to work with. I have to say, like, I'm enjoying this just because of who you are, not necessarily because of what we're doing. I did not want to be.
Could you rank us? It would just
I'm
help.
going to, but that's going to be a long term. In the long term, I always look at the long.
That's a very historical impulse of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we go, I just want to say, Doug, can you stick, since it's only been 2 weeks and I haven't seen any inquiries coming into the list for community or organizational engagement. Are you okay sticking with your role as inquiry fielder until the
absolutely.
November meeting?
I
Great.
just want to know that I'm doing it correctly. Like, does it
You'll
just
receive
mean-
I think everyone will receive the email, because when somebody emails the engagement subcommittee, that's how I emailed all of you. So
Okay,
if somebody emails the engagement subcommittee, like, we'll all get it.
Okay.
And I think it's just knowing that you're the person to respond. So,
All right.
okay, cool. Thank you all. Please be sure to review the materials that we're all supposed to review prior to the next full commission meeting. If anything comes up between, at any point, please
Have those
feel
been
free to reach out
circulated,
to me.
Amherst? Do I need to look closely at my email? review?
I think I stuck links to them in the agenda.
Okay,
And they'll
They will
also
also be sent
presumably
out
be in the
tomorrow.
agenda that's going out for the full commission meeting.
Okay,
I'm
thank
just
you.
trying to like, do my
Remind
role
us
as the
of the-
subcommittee chair and like convey on information that's been conveyed to the subcommittee
Yes.
chairs,
Yeah,
to
you know,
my
you're doing a good
subcommittee
job.
members. I agree. You guys are fun to work with, and thank you all for taking the time this
Thank
morning.
you all. Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks
Thank
everyone
you.
for your work on this. This is it takes a village. So I appreciate all of the excellent thinking and wordsmithing and expertise that is going into this document. I'm feeling really excited about it.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.